Hello everyone, this is me, Jennifer McCray, or J Shrink. How y'all doing this afternoon? It's kind of nice crispy fall afternoon here in Louisiana where I am. You may wonder, who is this man? This man is called James Samuel Sims. He was born in Lancaster County, South Carolina. And he entered the medical profession when doctors didn't undergo the same rigorous coursework and training that they do today. After he interned with a doctor, taking 3-month course and studying for a year at Jefferson Medical College, Sims began to practice in Lancaster. He later relocated to Montgomery, Alabama, seeking a fresh start after the death of his first 2 patients. So he just was looking for guinea pigs. This man is known as the father of gynecology. Women, be ready to wince. Be ready to be, revolted and and this is the speculum that he invented. Okay. So he built his reputation among rich white plantation owners by treating their human property, that is, their slaves. He used enslaved women for his experiments. Okay. So he built an 8-person hospital at the heart of the slave trading district in Montgomery. While most healthcare took place at plantations, most of the most stubborn cases were brought to physicians like Sims, who had their own little makeshift 8-patient hospital, because either they were unable to fix whatever was wrong with them, heal whatever was wrong with him, or they could no longer produce or reproduce for their masters again. Otherwise, they were useless. Okay? Like most doctors in the 19th century, Sims originally had little interest in treating female patients and no specific gynecological training. Indeed, examining, treating female organs was widely considered offensive and unsavory. But his interest in treating women changed when he asked to help a patient who had fallen off a horse and was suffering from pelvic and back pain. Okay, so to treat this woman's injury, Sims realized he needed to look directly into her vagina. He positioned her on all fours. He put her on a table and positioned them all fours. And it's not like today. Today, you lie down and they have the stirrups and they have the speculum and they look at your vagina lying down. They didn't do that. They didn't know to do that. So they just put the women on their hind legs and looked at their vagina, from the back. They would have the woman on all fours leaning forward, and then he would use his fingers to help him see inside of her vaginal canal. This discovery helped him develop the precursor of the modern stirrup that you see right here. Okay. Let's get on. Okay. The first patient to endure James Marion Sims' experimental surgery in 1845 was named Lucy. He bought 3 slaves, Lucy, Bessie, and Anarchia. Okay. Lucy, an enslaved black woman in Alabama, remained on her hands and knees on top of a table for more than an hour as Sims sought to repair the hole between her bladder and vagina without giving her any anesthesia. The anesthesia had just been developed, but he felt that black people didn't feel the same amount of pain as white people, so he wasn't going to try using anesthesia since they were just slaves and just animals. That was his feeling. So Lucy quickly developed blood poisoning after Sims tried to fashion a catheter. Look, he wanted to fashion a catheter out of a piece of sponge. Y'all heard about toxic shock syndrome, right? She ended up. He said that was stupid of him in his biography, but and he said himself, Lucy's agony was extreme. That he wrote in his 1884 biography. I thought that she was going to die. So she got toxic shock syndrome from that too. And he also used, because there was no anesthesia and the pain was excruciating for the women, he had these other male doctors to hold her down. I mean, he could have given her laudanum. He could give her laudanum, like I'm gonna smoke. He could have given her morphine. He could have given her even whiskey, like they do in the old westerns. You know, some type of strong alcoholic beverages. But they didn't want to do that because she was just an animal, just a guinea pig to be experimented on. So these two white men are the men, his medical students there will hold her down. Okay, so Sims is best known for his invention of the vaginal speculum for surgical procedures for curing a vaginal fistula. And a vaginal fistula is caused by problems during delivery. A hole develops between the bladder and the vagina, leading to uncontrollable urinating and ongoing discomfort and pain. A fistula can also occur between the rectum and the vagina, in which the patient would just be just like walking, like you have, you know, I've had charcoal before when I had an overdose one time. And you just spew out. You just walk every time you walk. Charcoal just spewed out of me until they put me on the right diaper and everything. So these slaves, since they didn't have, they didn't have any diapers or depends or anything to put on people, so they just walked around, and the other slaves and people, masters and stuff, couldn't stand these women, so they were just shutting them out together because they were just foul smelling, having no control over their bowels or their urination, doing it constantly, and just putting on just cloth like they had back then. That wasn't enough because it would just keep soaking through the cloth. Okay, it says 4 years from 1845 to 1849, Sims performed surgeries on slaves he kept in a little hospital of 8 beds for taking care of Negro patients in his backyard in Montgomery, Alabama, as he explained in his autobiography. On the issue of consent, and this is another unethical, remember we talked about unethical? Otabango that we talked about in another video, he was tricked into, becoming a zoo exhibit. But these women they were enslaved, and they couldn't give their consent. On that issue, Sims claimed in one case that a patient named Betsy willingly consented to one examination, but that was before his series began. But that was before his series of experiments began. At least one gynecologist who has defended Sims cited an article he wrote in 1855 in which he said all the patients gave their consent. They couldn't, they were slaves. Okay. So in his biography he said, I make this proposition to the Negroes. If you will give me an Orca and Betsy for experiment, I agree to perform no experimental operation on either of them to endanger their lives. It was Lucy that he had. And would charge not a cent for keeping them, but the masters must pay their taxes and clothe them, and I will keep them at my own expenses. Okay, so he was convinced that he had figured out a surgical panacea for the fistula. In 1845, he invited about a dozen doctors to observe his first surgery he performed on Lucy, poor Lucy. The doctors watched in anticipation as Sims prodded Lucy only for experiments to have failed miserably. So he didn't know what he was doing. He was harming the woman. Can you imagine somebody? It's like a form of rape. I'm going to consider this a form of rape during slavery, what happened to these poor women. Nevertheless, the experiments continued as Sims obsessively sought to perfect his procedure and his tools, including silver sutures used to stitch the hole between the bladder and vagina. Eventually, his assistants gave up on him. The female slaves, confident that he could heal them, he wrote, began assisting him themselves. Now, they just got disgusted. He just lying in his biography. They just got disgusted. You a poor slave woman, no rights, no nothing. And your sole purpose on the earth at that time is being experimented on by a prejudiced, racist. I would say he got some type of sadomsexual thrill out of doing this, with the women screaming and hollering, and the other doctors just couldn't take it anymore. They just left, and the other two women, Betsy and Anarcha, they had to hold her down. So they had to assist him in holding her down. And some fellow doctors, aware of Sims' repeated failures, wrote to him cautioning that perhaps he should stop the experiments. But Sims didn't. He was hard-headed. He's a hard-headed bastard. No, not until after his 30th surgery on Anarcha, when his procedure finally worked. Look, his 30th procedure on one woman, Anarcha. Oh, that's awful. Dr. Sims, the father of psychology, was the first doctor to perform a successful technique for the cure of vaginal vascular. A social worker, professor at the University of Alabama, wrote in the 1993 paper on the Journal of Medical Ethics. Yet despite his accolades and his request for fame and recognition, he manipulated the social institution of slavery to perform human experiments, which by any standards is unacceptable. Okay, so he then went on to found, after he finally got enough experience, after agonizing experiments on these poor women, he finally set up a hospital. But take this, for women, blacks weren't allowed in that hospital. Only white females, and they had anesthesia. Okay, and he was recognized by the New York Academy of Sciences, and here they put a statue in Central Park for him, and his being the father of gynecology and the speculum, but that caused controversy. I'm sorry. Wait a minute, y'all. Okay. That caused controversy. But as the years went by, that success was overshadowed by the fact that he earned it on the back of slaves. So people protested, later on when they learned about putting this man up on a statue for butchering poor enslaved black women in Central Park in New York. 24 hours after, and they had protests like this, vivid, visceral protests to how the slave women looked when they were butchered. He did manage to fix and to fix and teach fistulas, vaginal fistulas. But look what he did to all those women. He treated them like lab rats. I used to work in the lab with rats. We didn't treat our rats that bad, that poorly. Is bad. Even they got anesthesia. I mean, this man, he was just off the chain. He was just, I believe he got some type of sexual, sadistic thrill from doing this. But Sims, so these women protested, and for good reason. Why should, I don't know, a butcher, rapist, butcher be honored in Central Park for everybody to see? Because he became the president of the National Medical Association and the New York Scientific Academy of Medicine. So during the mid-2000s, they did this. And after 24 years, they finally took down his statue and put it somewhere else. And I don't see where they said that they put it at. But it said, Sims' legacy of non-consensual medical experimentation on women of color broadly and black women specifically that Sims has come to symbolize, and that's why they took the statue down. Okay. Okay. I'm going to need you to please subscribe and comment on my YouTube. Type in Jennifer McCrae J Shrink, and Jennifer McCrae J Shrink, and just think about the agony, I don't know, I couldn't explain it, how they survived, how Anarcha survived 30 surgeries. Woo. So when he got it straight, he decided to build a hospital for white women. And he was more careful with them. But he treated the others, the black slave women, like lab animals.